Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Natalia Leigh and I'm an indie author and freelance editor, and today we're chatting self-publishing, but not just self-publishing. We're going to talk about some of the top mistakes I see self-publishing authors make, and I'm even going to show you some of the mistakes that I made when I was first learning how to self-publish. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, and I am not an exception to the rule. I have a stack of books here. These are my books. These are the books that I have self-published, and I'm going to show you some of the mistakes that are in these books because, like I said, we all make mistakes and we have to learn from them. So if you are interested in self-publishing, if you want to self-publish your own book, but you don't want to make the embarrassing mistakes that I and many other authors have made, then stay tuned. All right, let's get started. So the first mistake that I see some self-publishers make, not all of us, but some, is self-publishing when what they really want to do is traditionally publish. And I answered a question about this in my last vlog. I'll have it linked down below. I did a brief Q&A at the end. And the question was essentially, if I self-publish my novel, can I then turn around and traditionally publish? Because I know that many writers want to get traditionally published. I understand the allure of traditional publication. And some people think, okay, if I do a really good job and I self-publish this book and it becomes a bestseller, am I going to be able to get into traditional publishing houses? And in most cases, that's not going to happen. Of course, there are these special snowflakes out there who get book deals after self-publishing their novels. But if you want to traditionally publish, you should not be self-publishing your book. Now, this is very different from a hybrid publishing method. Let's say you want to self-publish all of your romance and then traditionally publish all of your contemporary YA. You can absolutely do that, and that would be more of a hybrid model. But what you don't want to do is publish, your book. Let's say I was publishing Highborn and thinking, okay, what I really want to do is traditionally publish Highborn, so I'm going to self-publish it, try to, get some readers, get some good reviews, and then query an agent to try to traditionally publish this book. It's just not going to happen. So if you really want to traditionally publish that specific book, you should not be touching self-publishing with a 30-foot pole. You need to really make your decision and then stick with it, because after self-publishing a book, in 99% of situations, you are not going to be able to turn around and traditionally publish that book. Okay, the next mistake I see most self-publishers make, especially when they are first starting out, is incorrect formatting. And believe me, I am one of those self-publishers, and I am going to show you some terribly embarrassing examples. But I'm talking line spacing, incorrect margins, incorrect font size, page numbers all over the place, chapter headings that are not a consistent style, just obvious formatting errors. Poor formatting and obviously incorrect formatting is going to set you apart as a self-publishing author incredibly fast. And you don't want that. If your book is on the shelf next to a traditionally published book, you want a reader to open it up and see proper formatting. So let me go ahead and crack open this baby for you. This is Highborn. This is the very first version of Highborn that I ever printed for myself. This thing is a behemoth. It is absolutely gigantic. And part of that is because I formatted it so poorly. So we're going to open this baby up, and I'm going to show you what I did wrong in here. All right, here we go. We're just going to randomly open to a page, and oh my gosh, look at that formatting. You can see that my margins are off. They're a little bit too big, especially here on the outside. I mean, there's at least an inch margin here. You can see that there is way too much space between each line. That's probably 1.5. Probably 1.5 space rather than being single spaced or 1.1 or 1.2. I'd have to look back on Song of the Dryad to see what that is. I think it was 1.2, but I'm not sure. You can see that even something so small as, indenting the paragraph after the scene break, you don't need to do that. After a scene break, your paragraph does not need indentation. And it's the exact same thing with chapter headings. Let's find one here. You can see here I have messed up formatting as well because I indented after a chapter heading, which is not necessary at all. You know, my chapter headings are too close to the top of the page. I should have moved them down. I don't have any page numbers here, so this has a ton of formatting errors, and that's going to be really, really obvious to somebody reading your book. Now, this was an early version of Pistol Daisy. It has quite a few pages ripped out of it, but I'm going to show you the formatting I did in this book and how much more professional it looks now that I've learned how to format a book. All right, here we go. We have a chapter heading that is appropriately moved down the page. We have no indentation immediately after the chapter heading, which is good. I have some page numbers down here. You can see, look at that. Look at how nice this line spacing is. And I have more appropriate margins on this book as well. I don't want to show you guys too much here, but you know, this is an early draft anyway. This is not the same book. So you can see how much better and how much more professional this looks than Highborn. This looks like a professionally formatted book because I have learned to format books. So also, look at how gigantic this book is because of this terrible formatting, and that's going to make it more expensive for your readers as well. Versus, all right, here's the new version of Highborn. Look at how much smaller that is. That's about half the size and half the price, probably. I don't remember how much this was. Probably half the price of this one, because the bigger the book, the more pages that your print-on-demand company has to print, the more expensive it's going to be for your readers. You don't want a paperback book to be like $20, you know, and sometimes I've seen paperback books coming in at $20 or $25 because of how big it is, because of improper formatting. So formatting is incredibly important. It can either make you look like a super amateur, which is what Highborn did, or it can make you look like a professional, like Pistol Daisy or Song of the Dryad. I mean, look at this gorgeous formatting. This is professional, and nobody would ever question the quality of a book like this, but they would definitely be questioning the quality of a book like this. So guys, take my word for it. Either spend some time to learn formatting yourself or hire a professional formatter, because you do not want your book looking like mine, okay? It's just not good. Let's move on to the third mistake I see many self-publishers make, and this one is not obvious until somebody starts reading your book, and that is a lack of editing. Again, this was a mistake I made. When I was first writing Highborn, 6 years ago, I did not have the skills that I have today. I did not have the editing skills, that's for sure. And I also did not pay anybody to edit this book for me. Now, fast forward to Pistol Daisy. I'm a copy editor, a proofreader. I do manuscript critiques. I 100% have the skills to be copy editing a novel and making sure that it is incredibly clean. However, if you don't have those skills, and don't feel bad because many people don't, writing a book and knowing how to properly edit that book and scan it for errors, those are totally different skills, completely different. And many authors don't want to take the time to learn editing skills because it is something that you have to learn. It's not just inherent. You can be pretty good at spelling things, but you also need to know your hyphenation rules, your punctuation rules. You need to know the style guide that you're working with. So knowing how to properly copy edit or proofread a manuscript is a totally different skill set. So don't feel bad if you don't know how to do this yourself, but I highly recommend that as a self-publishing author, you are hiring a copy editor and or a proofreader. The best case scenario is that you would hire both, because a copy editor is going to do like the really heavy lifting, and the proofreader is there to make sure that everything is laid out properly, the formatting is correct and consistent, no spelling errors kind of slip through from the copy editing phase. So copy editing and proofreading, very different. I'll make a whole video on the difference between those two different types of edits and different types of editors. You don't want a book that's completely full of errors. And I get it. I don't know if I have ever read a book, traditionally published, self-published, doesn't matter. I'm not sure if I've ever read a book that didn't have at least 1 or 2 errors in it. That's just kind of what happens when you're writing books that are, 100,000 words long. It's going to happen. There are going to be some mistakes that slip through, and that's not a big deal. It happens to all of us. But what I'm talking about are these self-published books that have clearly not been edited. There are mistakes on every page, punctuation errors, spelling errors, grammatical errors, character inconsistencies. This person's eyes are blue on page 2, but on page 200, suddenly they are gray, and they're, nothing has happened in the story to change the color of their eyes. So you're seeing these types of inconsistencies, you're seeing these errors while you're trying to read a book, and it takes you out of the story. It really does. If you are trying to get sucked into a story, which is what every reader wants to have happen to them, they want to be whisked away to a different world. If they're trying to get into your story, but they keep catching errors, it's going to make it very difficult for them to sink into that world and to really absorb the story that you're telling them. And in many cases, they might even close the book and then head right over to Amazon or Goodreads and write you a crappy review. And you don't want that. You do not want a bunch of reviews telling people, there are errors on every single page, this author doesn't know what they're doing, don't buy this book. You don't want that to happen. And I'm aware that editing can be expensive. I would argue that it's something to save up for. It's something to really take into consideration. And of course, you can find editors at every, different price point, essentially. I worked with a very expensive editor. If you have seen my self-publishing costs video, which will also be linked down below, you will know just how much money I spent to have Song of the Dryad edited. And then on the other side of things, I typically charge my authors anywhere between like $300 to $800 is the average, just based on the length of the novel that I am editing. And I offer those prices because I don't want to shut people out. I value my services and I know that they are very professional and very high quality, but I don't want to be slamming the door in the faces of people who really want their books edited but don't have $2,000 to pay for it. So just keep in mind that readers are going to be looking for consistency. They want a clean read. They want to be sucked into your story and really, be absorbed into it. They don't want to be catching errors on every single page. So that is a massive problem that I find in a lot of self-published books, is that an editor wasn't hired, a proofreader wasn't hired, and there are errors all throughout the story. Everywhere. All right, moving right on. I'm sure you're having a real good time, aren't you? The fourth mistake that I see many self-publishers make is not hiring a cover designer, not having a professional cover. And guys, I've made this mistake multiple times. I mean, do we even have to talk about this? Do we even have to? This is not going to encourage a single person to buy this book. I was like, I have Photoshop skills. I can totally make a cover. No, absolutely not. So big mistake here. And then Song of the Dryad happened. And look at this thing. Look at how gorgeous and professional this cover looks. And it wasn't that expensive. I paid, I don't know, I want to say about $600. Again, you can go check out that video that's linked down below about self-publishing costs and how much I paid to publish this book, like exactly how much I paid. But, I paid for this cover, I paid for a paperback cover, I paid for the ebook cover, and then I also paid for the formatting for all of those books. And it was, I think, about $600. So a little bit pricey, but still affordable for everything that I got. And this cover is professional. It's absolutely gorgeous, and if I saw this at a Barnes & Noble, I would snatch it up off of a shelf so fast because it calls out to me. It's enticing, it's magical, it's beautiful, and I want to buy that book. I want to have it on my shelf. So again, Natalia's first time self-publishing a book, and then her third time self-publishing a book. So mistakes have been made. I have made some of these mistakes. So don't think that I'm some perfect author who never makes mistakes. I have made all of them, but I want to be able to sit in front of you and say, look at these terrible mistakes I've made. Hey, warning, don't do this. If I can be here to say, hey, make sure you're getting a professional cover and you're not throwing one together on PowerPoint, which is something that I tried to do at one point. We don't have to talk about that though. Then I want to be here to tell you that and to say, hey, save $300. Go buy yourself a gorgeous cover. The Pistol Daisy covers have only been $300 each, and they are gorgeous. I'm going to be doing the cover reveal of Pistol Daisy in April, I want to say. I think that's when I'm going to be revealing that cover, and it's absolutely beautiful. It was only $300, such a good deal. You can probably afford a book cover. And if not, you can always look on, if $300 is out of your price range, you can look on something like Fiverr You can look on Upwork. There are so many different options for covers. Again, there are covers for every price point imaginable. So just don't think that you have to be limited to making your own book cover, because if you can afford one that looks professional and beautiful, guys, your cover is your first line of marketing. You want somebody to see this and say, I have to have that book, and make them click it, make them pick it up, and eventually make sure that they are buying it. And people judge books by their cover. I don't know why that's a thing that we say, don't judge books by the cover, because we all do. So you want a book cover that's going to be judged positively instead of negatively. Okay, now that we've been through all of the kind of tough love mistakes that I have seen self-publishers make, the last one that I want to talk about is one that is close to my heart. Again, I have made this mistake. I made this mistake for years, and that is not believing in yourself and thinking that because you're self-publishing, you're not a real author. Because you're self-publishing, it's not a real book. And that is just not the case. And I am somebody who very much believes in the power of positive thinking. The law of attraction, believing in yourself, believing that you can achieve your dreams and, conquer all those goals. I'm real big in that. That's something that I absolutely love and that I kind of live my life by, is this idea that if I believe in something strongly enough, I can manifest that thing. And for years I thought, oh, I'm a self-publishing author, I have 2 books out, and I'm not a real author. Like, these aren't real books. I'm not a real writer because I chose to self-publish. And that is absolutely incorrect, 100% incorrect. If you are writing and editing and publishing your books and marketing your books, it doesn't matter if you're getting picked up by Penguin or HarperCollins, or if you are self-publishing on your own and you're, uploading your book to KDP, or maybe you're using Ingram Spark or Barnes & Noble Press. It doesn't matter. And I know that it feels like it does, because with self-publishing, there are no gatekeepers. And with the gatekeepers in the traditional world, there is a sense of fulfillment in getting through those gates, getting an agent, getting an editor, getting that book deal, seeing your book in Barnes & Noble. I understand how amazing those things must feel. I've never been traditionally published. I would be open to it in the future if I wrote a book that I felt would appeal to a traditional publishing market. Pistol Daisy does not, and I know it's very much a self-publishing type story and type book, and I love self-publication. But I can see why people would want the fulfillment of going the traditional path. But if you don't want that, or if your book isn't traditional publishing, material, maybe the genre is kind of dead, or they just can't sell that genre right now, that doesn't mean that you're not an author. It doesn't mean that you're not a real writer. It doesn't mean that it's not a real book. I have never had anybody question whether or not Song of the Dryad is a real book. I've never had anybody question if I am a real author or not. Song of the Dryad is in a bunch of libraries now, you guys. I've been receiving a bunch of photos on Instagram of people who have requested Song of the Dryad at their libraries, and then the library purchases it. And this is literally on the shelf in libraries right now. That is a real book. And if I hadn't believed in myself, if I hadn't believed, I am an author, I'm gonna take myself seriously, I'm gonna take my book seriously, if I hadn't been able to do that, Song of the Dryad wouldn't be out there. And it sure as hell wouldn't look as beautiful as it is now. It wouldn't be as high quality as it is, with professional editing, a professional book cover, professional formatting. But in order to get to this point, I had to believe in myself. With these other books, with Highborn and Way of Spears, I didn't believe in myself. I was writing them and, publishing them, but I never told anybody about them. I was embarrassed to be a self-publishing author, and I didn't take them seriously. And that's one of the reasons, there are many reasons, why I didn't have an editor. I didn't get a professional, book cover. I didn't have a formatter because I didn't take myself seriously. Why shell out all that money? Why pay all that money if I'm just a joke? If I'm just a fake, is kind of how I looked at it, which is a terrible way to feel about your creative work. And it is a terrible way to feel about something that you have put so much time and effort into. Writing a book can take years of your life, and you should never feel like a fake after having written a book. You should never feel like a fake because you are self-publishing your book. So one of the top mistakes I see self-publishers make is believing that they are not as good as an author who is getting traditionally published, believing that their books are not worth as much as a traditionally published book, and that's just not the case. But you really, it does really have to come from within. And for me, AuthorTube gave that to me. You know, when I started getting in front of the camera and telling people, here's how I write, here are my tips, here are my experiences, suddenly it made me feel validated. It made me feel like, oh my gosh, I can talk about these things. I can talk about my experiences. I have published books. I am an author. And that totally changed the game for me. When I believed in myself and I believed in my work, I started taking myself seriously and treating myself like an author, treating myself like a brand, and everything has gotten progressively better from there. There are always hard days. There are always things that go wrong. It doesn't matter how professional you are, things will always go wrong and you will always have struggles. But once you believe in yourself, you have taken the first and most difficult step to getting to where you want to be. So if you're self-publishing, then take yourself seriously, take your books seriously, and take your brand seriously. Get that book cover, get it professionally edited, market the hell out of it, and sell those books. So that's where I'm gonna kind of leave you today. Those are the top 5 mistakes that I see self-publishing authors making quite frequently. There are some others that I can share with you, so let me know if you liked this video and if you'd like to see another one in the comments down below. My editing is filling up very fast. I am currently booking into May right now, you guys, so if you want to get on my calendar, make sure that you're contacting me. You can jump over to enchantedinkpublishing.com or wait until the end of the video and click the link that'll show up here if you want to learn more about my editing services. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!